There we go. Good, very bright morning. I can never quite tell what you're going to see until the camera comes on. And it's not very bright evening here. I realized I set the time today for 8:15 p.m. instead of 8:15 a.m. So if you like, what's up? Everyone makes mistakes. Oh, yes, they do. And that can be one of the wonderful things going through the Gita. Everybody makes mistakes, even Arjun, one of the epitomes of spiritual quest, spiritual warrior. If he can make mistakes, we can too. And how do we handle them? That could be a great topic for one day. But today we're looking at Samatvam in Bhagavad Gita. Samatvam, the ability to be yourself no matter what. And ideally, a self of your choosing. Many of us default to a self of programming, programmed by others how to behave. This is our role, this is our name, this is our culture, this is our whatever. But ultimately, we get to make the choice. Hey, everybody. Sounds like a heavy atmosphere today. I don't know if you ever checked the almanac, but today in this area, we have not only don't swim because there are rip currents, but don't go out on your boat because there's a small craft advisory, and there are supposed to be waterspouts this morning. Wow. Anyhow, today's verse I have planned for you is verse 7:12, and in Embracing the Song of Your Soul, there are two translations, one more poetic and one more literal. And I'll read both of these. This, to me, is one of the most confusing verses in the Gita. And the Gita has some confusing verses. So I'll read the poetic, and then I'll do the same thing in the more literal, where you'll hear some Sanskrit terms with which you may or may not be familiar. Know that both ends of light's spectrum and all the colors in between come from me. I am not contained by them, although I contain them. And then with some Sanskrit. Know that the sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic states of being indeed proceed from me, but I am not in them, they are in me. So there's quite a bit of difference between those two because, let's face it, a lot of Westerners just don't know what a guna is, let alone tamas, rajas, sattva. And I've heard the analogy before of it's like they're like those three qualities of nature are like the three primary qualities of light. Just three main qualities of light, colors, we could call them, that create the infinite variety of millions and billions of shades that can be perceived around us, maybe not with our human eyes, but with other eyes and beyond. So I was like, what does this mean that, what's it say here? Everything's in Krishna, but Krishna's not in everything. So in the commentary for Embracing the Song of Your Soul, I embraced my confusion and I contemplated it. As many of you know, I lived each of these verses for at least a day so I could try to figure out what was going on and hopefully give you an authentic Western perspective and perhaps just universal perspective because we're all human, yes? So when I talked about the colors, when I thought about, all the colors on light spectrum, like in the poetic translation, yeah, there are lots and lots of colors, but if you know anything about the electromagnetic spectrum, there are colors or vibrations below, like the infrared, which is heat, the color of heat. Then there's vibrations above, the ultraviolet, even, like X-rays. So we've got all these other waves that fall along the same spectrum, radio waves, for example, but we cannot perceive them. Does that mean they're not there? That kind of idea helped me out because what we take as the whole of human experience is actually such a small part of the experience of other beings and the cosmos. So the color associations inspired me to try the metaphor of two extremes of a visual experience. The idea that Krishna could contain all the manifestations of light, yet exist beyond them, clicked with me. You can find the gunas, the qualities of nature or the colors of light in Krishna, but since he is so much more than them, you cannot find him contained in them. And I think that's important. He's not contained in them because we're talking about opposites a lot. The Gita uses these idea of opposites. Whether you're in pleasure or pain, you're yourself. Whether you're being persecuted or praised, you're yourself. Whether you're in hot or cold, you're yourself. And to get back to this whole idea of, see, what we perceive as these extreme opposites, if we look on a galactic or universal scale, are nothing. So I mentioned heat and cold were the same. You know, the range of temperatures we can actually survive in is tiny, minuscule. Absolute zero is hundreds of degrees below zero, whether you're using centigrade or Fahrenheit. And the core of the sun is millions of degrees above zero, whether you're using Fahrenheit or centigrade. And we can only exist in this teeny weeny. So how can we say, oh, we have the extreme of hot and cold? We don't have an extreme. We're like this tiny little point in existence. But we take this tiny point to be extremes. There are so many experiences beyond what we normally latch into. And I think that's why many human beings, like Wim Hof, he can survive in what we would consider really cold temperatures. And some of the sadhus of India can survive sitting in the middle of fires under the direct sun in a summer's day in India. Our range of experience is so tiny, we can barely have the right to call it opposites. So if we look at it like that, if we can take, and this is not just with temperature, but the experiences of our daily life compared to the absolute gigundity, there's a new word, of the cosmos, of the universe, of its experience, we really only have a limited experience available to us. And we're actually kind of already equanimitous. We just perceive, we make drama. We perceive that there are these huge swings, and they're really not. So this can give us hope that we can be steady. We can be steady. If we expand our focus. So let's start with a balanced pose to get us centered, and then we'll talk about the contemplation du jour. Oh, and by the way, today's practice is dedicated to Tejasvin. Good luck. To Cathy and to Joyce Brabner. May she rest in peace. I was so honored to have Joyce attend some of my classes. A wonderful, wonderful soul. And you can read more about her. You can Google her and find some interesting stuff. Shall we balance? Let's switch. No killing the moss. There we go. So now that we've kind of come to this point of our limited existence, I invite you for the next 5 minutes to really contemplate all the range of experience out there beyond our normal everyday. It could be in temperature, it could be in travel, it could be emotional experience, whatever, but just contemplate all the vastness that's beyond your usual experience for 5. Welcome back. I hope today's exploration gives you something to contemplate. Maybe the little shells we keep ourselves in and how much lies beyond them. We have a whole day to explore, and then we'll check back in tomorrow. Until then.